Syphilis, check one. Syphilis. Check
ever
two.
heard that at a show before?
Check your pants. Syphilis. No, I haven't. Syphilis?
Really?
No. That's pretty good though, huh? All right. Sarah and I, the most recent show we went to go see Walk Off the Earth. I don't know if you know Walk Off the Earth.
Didn't Mike do a cover of them?
He might have. Well, they're basically like a cover band. They started YouTube.
Yeah.
He might have done one of their songs.
Or maybe he made a joke about doing.
He might have done that, right? Because they're the people that played the guitar. They're the ones that played that.
Yeah.
Somebody that I used to know.
Yes.
As one guitar.
I think
right?
he actually did make a joke about that.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the most recent thing that I went to go see. And there's like half of the audience was kids, dude. So that's, they weren't doing syphilis checks. There's no syphilis checks at a Walk Off the Earth show.
Where was that?
That was, where did we go see them? We saw them at the casino. We saw
I've never been to a show there.
Mohegan? I've been to both of them. I forget if we went to Foxwoods or Mohegan. Mohegan. It was a Mohegan.
Is Mohegan the one that's like in the casino? That like free stage thing? It's like.
Yes. I don't even know that. I'm trying to think now. Because, maybe it's Foxwoods. Yeah, because Foxwoods is the dope one. It's the big and tall, like right out in the water. Like that's the dope casino. Mohegan's kind of like, as I recall.
I've been to one once.
I don't give a crap about casinos, dude. I don't care at all. People are like, oh, you want to go to the casino, hang out? No.
Unless you're in Vegas, where like it makes sense.
Vegas or even Atlantic City. I get it, Atlantic City.
We're going to see that band Cashed Out next Wednesday before I fly to St. Louis.
Cashed Out?
That's who I'm having play the 7-year.
Oh, the reggae band.
Yeah.
Tight. 7-year. So this is recording, so I'm going to do intros.
Okay.
We're just doing a little banter, Started off a little banter, George.
Sounds good.
Hey, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to the Steve Walter Photo Podcast, Season 1, Everything is Art. And today I have with me one of my favorite humans ever. Introduce yourself, please, sir.
I'm Jorje Perham. I am the owner and tattooer at FTS Gallery in Stratford, Connecticut.
Strat City, baby.
Strat City.
Hometown, OG. So George and I grew up together in Stratford. Mm-hmm. So I've known you for a while.
Long time.
We were reminiscing not too long ago about a story that I was sharing with people about things we did in our childhood. And basically we were talking about how our parents didn't want us hanging out with not necessarily each other, right? But like us, versions of us.
Degenerates.
Degenerates. Yeah, perfect way of putting that. Mm-hmm. But we've sort of come around, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so 7-year anniversary is coming up at FTS Gallery.
Yes, sir.
And it's crazy to think that, like, I remember you, like, sending me a message, like, bro, I'm opening up this place. Like, you want to come put some art in it? I'm like, yes, of course I do. Mm-hmm. Like, and what a dope energy that created.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of drama that came with that, too, for you specifically, because Stratford didn't want a tattoo shop. These kids, these degenerates, basically.
Yeah.
Which, okay, maybe not too far off, right? Just speaking of our childhood, but more to the fact that, like, you had a vision for that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you wanted it to be more than just, like, a tattoo shop.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to take on the art side of things more than the tattoo side of things coming from, like, a street shop. But, yeah, I mean, which is, like, not something that was new at the time either, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it was just something that I saw was happening and wanted to be a part of it,
But it was definitely new for Stratford.
Definitely new for Stratford. Definitely new for Stratford.
Super new. Yeah. But, I mean, like we just said, 7 years you've been there. And every year you've hosted, like, a big bash just to kind of commemorate, celebrate.
And thank everybody for hanging out,
Basically, right.
Yeah.
Because you host, you'll host a whole bunch of gallery showings throughout the year, right? And then once a year there's the big bash.
Yep.
And then even a couple years ago you hosted that at the beach, which was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was probably one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life, for sure.
Dude, that was so crazy. So basically, George took over the beach in the town that we were talking about, Stratford, and you hosted a massive party, like an all day long, it was a festival.
Yeah, like a tiny all day festival.
It was a festival,
yeah.
Like just music, like full legit stage. You were walking around with a walkie on, dude. You were so official.
Dude, we were all more excited about the walkie-talkies on our shoulders than anything that entire week.
I don't care what happens. Dude. I get to wear a walkie.
We should just have these at the shop all the time. Only talk to each other through mic.
That's it, dude.
Yeah, dude, that shit was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was like the most awe I've ever been in, like, for sure, of anything I've ever done.
Yeah.
Just like walking around all day, like, what the hell is going on right now?
So I got to imagine like there were moments where you were able to sit and just be like, this is freaking cool.
Yeah.
Like just in your own space of like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And again, you had one of your favorite bands playing there, right? They closed out the show, which was so dope.
Yeah, they killed it, man. And they like ended it exactly how it should have ended. You know, everyone was just dancing and going fucking nuts. So.
It was so good.
Yeah, man, that was epic. That was a super fun time.
So tell me how you got started in art. Let's go back to young George.
Young George. I don't know, man. I used to just trace stuff. I used to just trace cartoons. I was like obsessed with Looney Tunes and all that kind of shit like when I was a kid. So I used to just trace cartoons all the time. That was like kind of what I remember doing the most like when I was younger. Yeah. And I did Miss West class. I used to paint.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Miss West. Yeah. The Little Red House of Art and Music.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's so crazy that, flashbacks of that. And I remember there was a tattoo artist. What was his name that came in? Oh, what was his name? Big guy. Real long hair, blondish hair. Oh, I can't remember his name, but basically he showed us how to, like, I remember drawing a dragon for the first time, and I'm like, yo, this is awesome.
God, I feel like now that you're saying that,
fire-breathing dragon.
I remember that too.
Because I remember that was a thing, and I was like, we're drawing tattoos, this is weird. He's like, no, you can draw whatever you want to draw.
Yeah.
And then, like, I remember he was drawing a Viking. He was showing me this Viking that he was drawing, and I'm like, that is so cool. I was in that class with John Tomac, dude.
I wonder who that was.
And John Tomac drew... he drew the cover of Jimi Hendrix "Are You Experienced?" And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. I got a message. I just sent John Tomac a message because he does a lot of dope vector illustrations, so he's still full onto art. Yeah. I got to send him that. They're like, yo, I had this conversation with George. We were reminiscing. So, right, going back to that, like being in art programs, like art. See, and I didn't know this about you when we were younger, that like you were really into art. Like it wasn't until like later when we were a little bit older, I was like, oh yeah, George is a freaking dope artist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I was definitely interested in it. I think it was like my parents were just pushing something that was positive, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shit, watching you draw was like a huge influence when I was a kid, dude. I was like talking about this, I forget who I was talking about this with, but you drew like this little cartoon turtle on the top of Jared's quarter pipe at his house. Oh. And like, I could probably redraw it. Like,
that's awesome.
I probably could.
Yeah.
But, dude, I remember that thing. I was like, how did you just do that? Like, what the hell?
Oh, that's nuts. So Jared, obviously a childhood friend of ours, who just had a child, which is awesome.
Little baby.
The quarter pipe, and I remember my brother, Duckman, like he went on rollerblades, and I'm pretty sure he cracked open the back of his head.
Yeah, I think everybody cracked open their back.
Yeah, because no one knew how to do it. Yeah. No, it was like, oh, this is easy, dude. Physics isn't a hard thing. Gravity, what's that?
Yeah.
So tracing stuff, right? Just kind of learning like the flow of lines, right?
I don't even know if I was learning, you know? I think you're just doing it.
You're just processing.
Yeah, man.
Just doing it.
Yeah. I don't think I ever started really taking it serious till like probably in high school. But not even really, you know, because I practically failed art in high school, so that doesn't
well, that's
really
also
count.
just like high school.
Yeah.
And it sucks because you're like, oh, this class is stupid, I don't care.
Exactly.
Versus getting into doing, you know, something where you're passionate about that art, and you're like, oh, this, I want to learn about this technique. I want to learn more about this because I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. It's more just like knowing, I was like, okay, I want to do something creative, you know. I just didn't know what it was at that time, I think. I was always obsessed with oil painting, man. I don't know, like oil painting is just always like, I just don't get it, you know, like especially like a lot of old master stuff, a lot of Salvador Dali stuff. I'm just
dude,
like, how, you know, I still think that, and I paint now. So like, how did they do this then, you know?
Right, when the limited amount of tools, dude, they had to make their own paint. They had to like figure out like how, like get pigments and mix it and like cut and powder. You had to do all of that just to paint. Just to put color on canvas, and then you ran out, you got to go make some more. You don't pop down to the corner shop, you don't go to Hobby Lobby and just go get some more paint, dude.
It's super crazy, man.
Have I talked to you about Tim's Vermeer? Have we talked about Tim's Vermeer? So one of my favorite, you know, masters, Dutch master, Johannes Vermeer, right? Not to name drop, you know, no big deal. I just like to say Johannes. So he, you know his stuff, right? The Girl with the Pearl Earring. There's so many others. But that's like the most iconic one for those listening. If you Google the Girl with the Pearl Earring, you'll see it, be like, oh, right, that guy. But basically what his whole thing was is that he had this photorealism thing down. So what this inventor, Tim, what the heck is his last name? I can't remember. But basically he started a special effects company. It wasn't Industrial House of... light. I forget what special effects he created. Lightwave, Lightwave 3D.
Yep.
He created that.
Really?
And he created a whole bunch of like TV, like video production, like stuff. So he's an inventor. He's made all kinds of gadgets and whatnot, right? So that's sort of like the preface of who this guy is. So he set out to figure out how Vermeer painted so accurately. So basically what they discovered was that he used like a contraption. He used sort of like a camera obscura with a mirror, and like basically was painting what he saw. Because the one thing that they were doing, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, they were analyzing the transition of light, the fall off of light on a wall, where our brains can't process it that way. A computer, a camera can, because it captures everything. Yeah. But he was able to paint this perfect transition from light to dark. And it was just like, how did he do that? And so basically this dude figured it out. It's an awesome documentary for those listening, and obviously yourself. Yeah. It's just so cool to watch. I watched it 3 times now.
What
it's
is
funny.
The documentary called?
Tim's Vermeer.
Tim's Vermeer.
And what are the comedians? The guys in Vegas, the big guy and the guy Penn and Teller. Penn is friends with this dude Tim, and so they produced it. So they produced this. Dude, it took him like, I forget how many years it took him to basically do it. I don't want to give the whole thing away. 100% worth a watch, and he'll just be like, wow.
I'll check it out.
So it's cool to think that like this dude was sitting there, still had to make his own pigment, still to do this, but he basically was using a contraption. Like he was blending art and science. Yeah. And it's like, that's why I love photography. And I mean, we were kind of talking about it earlier, right? About tattoo guns, right? And that there is machines, or they call them guns. Yeah, I guess we don't call them guns. I call them guns because I'm not in the world. Tattoo machines. That there's certain technologies that kind of come and go with that, right? There is always this blend of art and science. And again, hence this podcast of like why I want to do this stuff is
for sure.
All of these things are connected. So it's just cool to think that like, and you're a fine artist. I would call you a fine artist before I call you a tattooer. Your medium of choice at this point is skin, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's just sort of how I would, like when I describe Jorge to people, I'm like, he's a fine artist who's a tattoo artist, right? Like,
I like to think I'm a tattooer. I don't know. I mean,
and not to take that away from you.
No. I mean, I think that's just like I think it all goes together essentially. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just an artist in general, tattooing being a medium, you know, and I also paint and do whatever. But I mean, I do digital stuff. I make all the flyers for the shop. I do everything. You know what I mean? But I don't know. It's something about being a tattooer, you know. I think at the end of the day, I just would rather be a tattooer, like
just
end all be all, you know.
Right.
For sure.
So if you were to take everything else and just be done with it and have someone else do it, not to say that someone else would do your oil paintings for you, right? But like, if you could do one thing, just tattooing.
Tattooing, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's love.
Just zapping people.
For sure.
So how did you get started in that?
I got tattooed pretty much. I mean, I was like always interested in it, you know, and just never really thought of it as like a pursuing career or anything like that. Yeah. And I got tattooed and kind of sparked my interest a little bit more, you know. Yeah. And then when I moved back up here from Florida, I like ran into Mike Mananisi, who I hadn't seen in like 100 years. Yeah. And then he was living with Chris Finalis at the time. Okay. And so he was a tattooer, owned Shelton Tattoo at the time. Yeah. And I started like picking his brain a little bit and kind of trying to like work my way into the world a little bit. Yeah. But
and Mike was sharing that's basically how he got into tattooing, was like he was getting tattooed and he was like, yeah, I'm into this. Like, this is dope. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's right. What was your first tattoo?
I tattooed Mario. We inverted a question, or I guess not inverted, but horizontally. We made like 2 question marks in like the shape of a heart on the back of his arm.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's so good.
At Bridgeport Tattoo, where I apprenticed. And yeah, man, that was terrifying. You know?
Sure. But at least it's on a buddy of yours, so it's like nobody's like, dude, I'm probably gonna screw this up. Yeah, it's fine, dude. No worries. Yeah,
that's why I
still love you.
That's why I picked Mario.
That's why you pick him, right? Yeah.
Who cares what he is?
Dude, can I just borrow you? Right, because so the only thing that I know of where you can practice, right, for whatever reason, people use pigs. Is that like a thing?
Pigskin, yeah.
Pigskin is a thing. Like, is there some sort of synthetic material that they've come up with that?
There is, man, but nothing's gonna touch tattooing people.
It's not the same. So so what's interesting about that is you can't practice unless you're practicing permanently.
Yeah, but it's like that. I think it's that permanence which kind of like like helps you move along quicker, you know?
That's going to push
if you
you.
could just practice on like something that was fake all the time, like you'll just get comfortable and it's not the same. It's just not even close. But,
yeah, that makes sense.
I never tattooed anything else but people. I've tattooed.
Never did a pig?
Nah, never did a pig. I've never did anything. I've like in the past few years have tattooed on like fake hands and stuff and fake skin.
Okay.
Just to try it out, but I've never, like when I was learning, I've never tattooed anything else.
It was just humans.
Yeah.
You come
Just
in,
all
hey, I
friends.
want this.
Yeah.
And did you start off doing so even before I get into that, and I'm realizing as I'm playing with this bottle, and it's probably making a whole bunch of like I want to do that. But so you talked about apprenticing, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's sort of not a lost art, right? But maybe it is lost. Can you talk about that? Because I remember Mike talked about that too, basically. Yeah. So what was your apprenticeship like? Like, how did you approach that? Like, how did that work?
I apprenticed under Danny Williams in Bridgeport Tattoo, and I mean, you just get treated like shit, essentially, you know? Like, I walk into this shop, he kicked me out the first time I ever went in. I went back, because, like, I went in, I was, like, discouraged, but not, and then at the time, I was, like, talking to Chris, and Chris was like, go learn from him. If you can survive there, you know, then I'll hire you in the future, kind of thing. And, yeah, I mean, he booted me out, then I went back, and then he gave me a job. Well, he told me, like, if I was serious, like, to come back. Yeah. And he ripped apart my sketchbook, you know. It was just like, you don't know how to draw, you don't know shit, like, whatever. Made me sweep the shop the first time I was there. And that's how it was, man. I mean, Danny was, like, you know, old school.
Tough love. Essentially.
Yeah, you know, and it was like, I mean, he was an asshole, but it was all for the good, you know, like it kind of made me into the human I am today, and which I fucking love, you know, and I still have that, man. Like, people say I'm like him and like I'm like Chris, because Chris is like just like him.
Really?
And Mikey can attest to that. Yeah. And Chris will probably laugh at it if he ever hears this. But I mean, they're the same, man, you know, they're just like, they talk shit, but they talk shit to make you a better person, right? Know, essentially, if you want to take it like that, or you can take it and be a bitch and run away.
You can take it and you know, sulk about it, and or you can sit and say, all right, well, he's saying this. Oh, my work's crap. Okay, well, let me prove him wrong. Yeah, right. Let me use this as a motivator, and I guess that's what sort of defines the character.
It's like, you know, it tells me I can't draw a rose, but then he'll show me how to draw a rose. You know, so it's like, it's like, you know,
hey, idiot, this is how you do it.
Yeah. But I mean, there was definitely times where like I would be tracing something out at the shop or like drawing or whatever, and he would just crumple it up and throw it away.
Really?
You know, and it was like such a kick in the nuts, but at the same time it was like, damn it, like I get it. I thought
that was pretty good, man. That looked pretty nice. Those are nice lines.
And then you have to like get yourself to not draw the same thing over and over again. That's like in your brain, you know, right. So you have to like figure out how to change it or whatever, you know. I mean, that shop was covered from floor to ceiling in Flash, and I traced probably everything on that wall, on all those walls, like multiple times, you know.
So for those who don't know, Flash is like that sort of typical artwork that you see, tattoo artwork, you know.
I wouldn't say typical.
It's not typical,
traditional.
No. It's traditional.
Yeah, it's just,
traditional.
Just what they were. I mean, that was just how you got tattooed, you know?
Right. Like you would go into a tattoo shop, look at the wall and be like, I want that. Like that's Flash, right? Versus something that's custom that you sit and say from George's brain, like, I'm going to draw this thing. Hey, do you want this tattooed? Or I would imagine the best is someone comes in and says, hey, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And that's
do
maybe
whatever
not.
you want is a little bit too much. I like some kind of direction.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think I mean, I know I do too. Just even photographically, like if someone's just like, hey, I want to just take some portraits. Okay, well, what kind of portrait? Like there's so much we could do. Yeah. Like if you want me to just come up with something, sure, I will.
What are these portraits for?
Right. Like what is it? Right. Yeah. Do we want something dark and moody? Do we want something bright and happy? Like there's all these things in between. Color, not color. Like
I mean, at the end of the day, they have to wear it, not me. I will do my best to give them something that I know is going to look good as a tattoo, you know, right. But at the end of the day, like I want them to have a direction, you know. I have a book of stuff. I mean, we all have books of stuff at the shop that like little binders of things that we want to tattoo.
Right.
People are terrified of the shit that I have in there. That shit's so weird. Like, why would I want any of that on me? Like,
so you're just talking about like literally just a book of your like brain sketches.
Essentially like the Flash version now, where we just put them in binders instead of having them on the wall. You know, it's the same shit.
So people could flip through and be like, "Ooh, I want this."
And when I do them, man, I love it, and I think they're great tattoos.
How funny is it? Like if someone like picks it and you're like, "Oh, really? Okay, cool. Let's do this."
Yeah, it's the best.
So if they do that, do you take that out?
Yep.
It's one of a kind, right?
Yeah, I just do once and then I take them out.
Right. Versus, I mean, I guess if you drew some cool, because I know Mike does a lot of the dope geometric shapes, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I would imagine that some people, more than one person, could appreciate that. Versus, like, if there was, whether I call it, so you do a lot of biomech, right? Mm-hmm. So that is sort of, no pun intended, organic in the sense that, like, it's a one-time thing. You wouldn't do the same piece on someone because... I
mean, you take the same style, and like the same look or the same shapes, but
it's not going to be flash.
Yeah,
it's not the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
And even more to that, like when you're doing that stuff, you're drawing that on them, right? Or sometimes you will have a pre-drawn sketch.
If it's something like organic, like bio, like something like that, I'd 99% of the time draw it on. I'll have like usually sketches like prior to like just a basic shapes and looks and stuff that I want to go with, I won't just like, I'll try not to just like jump into it. But yeah, I mean, you could just make it fit. I mean, the whole point of that stuff is to like fit the muscle structure and the anatomy of a body, you know? So it's like, there's not really any better way. I mean, you can stencil it, and I have stenciled stuff, but it's like, I like the process of drawing on people.
Like
I don't
just
know.
straight up, just drawing. I mean, I've seen you do that before, and it's freaking cool to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like one of my favorite things to do is draw on people. But it's like time consuming, It's like you're taking an extra chunk of the day to make that perfect. And then there's a chance where they're like, nah.
I'm mad. You sit there like 2 hours of drawing, and they're like, yeah,
Which doesn't happen often, but I mean, I want it to happen more than I don't, Like I want someone to be like, hey, I don't really into it. Like I'm okay with that, Like I can't read a mind.
Versus like, yo, this is amazing. You're like, okay, we're doing it. Yeah. But what's neat about that, right, is that it is unique to not even just that one illustration, but to their body.
Yeah, I'm not going to replicate that,
No.
I might replicate like a certain shape or movement or something, but nothing is ever the same when you do it that way, which I think is cool. And I learned that from people who've been doing bio forever, like that was, I loved watching people draw with markers on people, and I'm like, damn, I need to get into that game a little bit,
So is there a reason are there specific colors that you use that are symbolic for anything when you're drawing on someone's skin?
It's not symbolic, man. I just did like a trial and error of what, like, I guess works with my eyes well. Like I think
like where a highlight should be, where a shadow should be, that kind of thing. Is that a thing? Or is
with the markers or just tattooing?
With the markers? Yeah,
I mean, I just found these 3 shades of Sharpie in this pen that I just use because I don't know, like I feel like it doesn't rub away. I feel like it sticks together well.
Yeah.
I can like, I don't know, the whole process. I mean, I used to try to use greens. I used to try to use blues. I just didn't like how it looked. Like the colors that I use now is just kind of what works with me, I don't know. There's no like, and whenever I draw on people, they're like, oh, I really like those colors. And I'm like, I'm fucking putting a giant orange tattoo on you. Like, it's not happening.
Can you just leave it like this?
Yeah.
Can you just permanently leave the Sharpie on my arm?
Which I get because it looks cool, but
but
we're gonna make it so much better.
It's gonna look way better, dude. Like this isn't even
sketch.
it. Yeah. So going back, I realized I kind of pulled us off course from talking about that apprenticeship. So going through that apprenticeship, right, with Danny and Chris, or Danny specifically, but just being able to kind of learn from these, call them masters, right, or just, pros, right, in the field that have been doing it for a while. Is that something that you encourage new tattoo artists to get into?
For sure, man, because, I mean, tattooing is learning tattooing, and apprenticeship is great, but at the end of the day, like, you have to learn the ins and outs of a tattoo shop. It's not just learning tattooing, it's learning about being in a tattoo shop and, talking to customers correctly and dealing with people correctly. And it's all the above. Like it's an endless list, man. It's, it's like, and I think that's where people are stuck. They just want to learn how to tattoo. If you just learn the technical ability of tattooing is like, that's great. But if you can't talk to somebody, then you're going to have a hard time no matter what.
Or even more, if I can make this suggestion, like if you can't take criticism on your work.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Because if someone comes in and you draw it and they're like, yeah, well, could you maybe do something like this? And they're like, no, this is my work, dude. Get out of here. You don't respect it. It's like, no, it's like you have to say like, okay, yeah, well, we could try that. And it's going to be difficult to do that. Maybe we do this kind of thing. Maybe find a compromise.
People, people don't know. People just know what they see. So if you're trying to create something new that they don't know and they haven't seen, it's it's hard. You have to learn how to sell it, essentially, you know?
Because, I mean, you're selling permanency.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, it's not at all what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not at all what most other artists or creators do, where it's like, this is permanent. Maybe people that do piercing, but even piercings can close up. Although I guess you can get tattoos removed, but that's like a whole... you can't really, right? Like, you can get them pretty much covered up, but
people get them pretty gone these days.
I guess after, like, you'd have to do it like for several years, right? Like, you have to keep going in there getting work done, right? It's not like you can, for those listening, it's not like you can go get a tattoo done and then be like, nope, changed my mind next week and zap it away. No. Years and years of going in for procedures to have it like pulled out, which is crazy in the fact that like someone figured that out. That as humans, we figured out, oh, cool, I'm going to take a needle, drive it into your skin. There's some ink in there. Now it's permanent. And then like, oh, wait, how do we get that out now? Okay, let's figure that out.
Well, I mean, that goes so much further back than needles, and you know, I mean, tattooing's been around for fucking ever.
Well, right.
Bodies.
So you even, so you had experiences in other tattoo shops, Hawaii specifically, right, where there's the tradition, like legit tradition of, I mean, I want to call it, you know, a stick with like, I don't even know what they would actually use as a needle.
As boar's tooth.
Boar's tooth.
That they carve themselves,
Boar's tooth that they carve themselves. They tie it around like a piece of stick that's tied around to another stick that they tap with another stick, right? I'm super simplifying that. I realize that, but that's basically the gist of it. I've seen the movie Moana, George. I know how they do it. I saw the one scene, you know, but that's how they would do their line work. That's how they do their shading.
The privilege of working with somebody who does that, man, is the coolest thing. That was like one of the main reasons why I moved to Hawaii, you know?
That's right. Let's talk about the fact that I'm sitting there telling George, I'm like, here are some of the things I want to talk about. Like, let's talk about the fact that you moved to Hawaii for a year and tattooed in Hawaii. Like, you lived in paradise. Mm-hmm. You brought your dog Stratford to Hawaii and just lived there and just experienced life to the fullest.
Yeah.
So you were working in that traditional shop, but they also did modern stuff too.
Yeah,
right?
It was like a regular street shop essentially, but they had a SWPP.
That's dope. Was it just one dude that did that, or there was one guy?
Yep.
And I think, if I'm not wrong, you told me that he was drawing a sketch for someone, and they took a picture of it, and then he threw it out.
He just changed it.
Well, he changed it, right? Because she call it, you know, I don't want to get too deep or philosophical, but like, she took the soul from it. Like she took what he was making for her specifically and she's like, oh, let me put it on Instagram. Oh my God. I'm sure that's what she sounded like. So he's like, nope, we got to do this again because it needs to be.
Yeah. He just kind of like redrew it and did change it a little bit. It was cool, man.
There's that tradition.
His name is Pili Mo'o. And
Pili Mo'o.
Yeah, he's an amazing, amazing human being.
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
So that's cool that you got to, so not only like learn through an apprenticeship of like some dudes, hardcore dudes that know how to tattoo, open up your own successful tattoo shop, but then have the experience to go to where it's like tradition, right? And experience
history,
that.
Man. That's what I love about tattooing the most is the history of it, you know? And that's like going back pretty far. So that's like why I moved there, you know? Like, I mean, I just got to be a part of something that I feel like was like a once in a lifetime opportunity, you know?
Sure.
And now I have like a lifelong friend, you know, like him and his wife are the best, you know?
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah. If you go to Hawaii, you're like, I got a place to stay. I'm good.
Yeah.
Or even potentially like, I got a place to work too, because you built that connection. Yeah. The history of that stuff is, that's nuts when you really do think about that. And the fact that like, he's still practicing that tradition.
Yeah, he travels, man. He travels like crazy. It's nuts. That dude is like probably one of the hardest working tattooers that I've ever been in contact with, you know. He's been doing it way longer than I have even thought about doing, so it's crazy. He dedicated his life to a craft, you know, and that's it.
That's it. That's nuts. Yeah. And you don't see that. I mean,
you do. In the tattoo industry, man, like I've probably met some of the most humble and like hardest working human beings that I've ever met in my life. Like the tattoo industry is like, I don't know, it's like a very hidden underground gem in a sense, you know?
Yeah.
Which is cool. That's like why I love it. I don't know. It's just something about it, man.
There's a unique set of people that are really into it. Again, not talking about the people we were talking about before, where it's just like, hey, I just want to learn how to draw and tattoo cool stuff and, you know, be famous for tattooing on Instagram, whatever it is. But to really embrace the culture. Because it is, I mean, it's a lifestyle, man. And I'm making these assumptions, like I'm not really connected to it. Yeah, I have some tattoos, but not in any kind of real sense. Yeah. And we even kind of joked, like I used to work. So wait, I'm going to get to that in a second. because I want to talk about us sharing a building and you and your influence for me. But it's cool that you have this bigger picture of what tattooing really is, and not just like, I'm a dude that runs a tattoo shop. It's like, no, man, there's more to you than that.
For sure, man. I love tattooing because of like the travel aspect and the story aspect of it. You know, like working with Danny, I mean, he worked with so many, you know, and he learned from great tattooers. So it was like the stories that dude had were endless, you know, and they were awesome. And I think that's like what drew me to tattooing the most. It's like everybody kind of like builds their own, like, I don't know, like writes their own little story, I guess, you know. And it's like, that's kind of what I want to do, you know. It's like I went to Hawaii because it's like not normal, essentially, you know. And it's like I wanted to go do that because it like helped me out as a human being, you know, and like and my career and everything. So I don't know, it's weird. It's a strange fine line, man. I don't know.
Well, and that's definitely like when I think of you, I think of like, I'm going to do what I want to do. Yeah. Like I'm going to do, and not even I'm going to do what I want to do, like some jerk, but like more like I'm going to do what feels right, what's unique to me, and not just, never are you just going to do what everyone else is doing. That's never been you, which is dope, which is so cool. And the fact, and I was talking about that with Raquel when she was on the podcast, that you are the only you. Like obviously we're all the only us, you know, we have the only smile, like only eyes. No, but like there is one George. Like that's it. Like straight up Jorge, it's like terrifying. That's the dude. Yeah. Yeah. Hide your kids, hide your wife. So and in talking about that, see what I did? I made a little segue. The influence that you had on me was tremendous. And I think I've shared this with you. I'm gonna share it with you again and for the audience as well. Is so when I started in photography, you know, I just started doing it on the weekends, right? Kind of came from the background of doing graphic design. And I was sort of like, oh, cool. Photography's dope. And like, I wanted to take portraits. You opened up FTS Gallery and you let me use the front gallery space for doing portraits. And then eventually I accumulated lights and then I'm doing that. And then I got a backdrop. So like I'm showing up to your place, setting up, and you were dope about it. You were just like, yeah, dude, come in and do it. Like as long as it's not interrupting anything, like come on in. So I'm setting up backdrops. I'm setting up lights. And actually Jared was one of the people that helped me get lights to kind of start off. So like between the two of you, it was just like, yes, this is amazing, right? Just opportunity. So it's like, cool. I tried to book as many people as I could. Mostly, you know, free shoots. Some of them were paid, but mostly just me figuring things out. Right. And
mostly it was just all of us.
Well, right. It was just mostly you at the shop. There were a couple of weird nights of me taking pictures. Good times, of course. But then even that, photographing events at the shop, like just opportunity after opportunity. And then at one point you were like, dude, why don't you just get your own space? And you didn't say it in like a, bro, get your own space, get out of here. It was more like, you're ready for this. Like, get your own space. So then my first studio was down the hall from you guys.
Which was the shit.
That was, it was so good. And that was dope. So I shared that space with Falzone, Derek, Rebecca, and it was a place to create. And it was a place for me to, you know, as I would say, like blossom, right? And just, again, a lot of cool and weird times in there, but just awesome pictures that were made and great experiences. Now I'm here in this studio, but there was so much.
You abandoned us, no big deal.
I know, I did kind of bail. I bailed. Well, there were other circumstances.
Yeah,
you know,
I get it.
Building, it's all right. But it wasn't for a lack of. It wasn't because I didn't like being in around you guys, right? Because what I was going to say was like the energy was the best. And that. I bring that up because I think that's something that any artist, any creative should embrace when you can. And people will talk about it, it's like surround yourself with the people that not only will like challenge you and push you, but that are just going to support you, right? And literally like the feeling that you have when you walk into a room and you're like, this is weird. Don't be around those people. You walk into a room and you're like, yes, be around those people.
Intuition, man, for sure.
And you guys, FTS is that extended family. Like that was just beautiful times. It's just the best. So
still going.
So thank you on record. Thank you for that motivation. And it's not like you stopped doing that, right? Like we've had so many conversations. You've inspired me to freaking do this podcast, dude. Like we had this conversation at Falzone's show, and I was talking, I'm gonna do a podcast. You're like, yeah, do a podcast. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do a podcast. Like I'm starting it this year. Like I'm doing it, and I'm doing it now. And like I think about like George would just do it. George would just do it. So now I'm like stoked to continue that path, and Like even when I'm having conversations with you, I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about it. It's like, no, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm not thinking about doing it. I'm going to do it. Because I feel like in your mind, you're like, dude, are you thinking about doing it or are you going to do it? Just do it.
I mean, the worst thing that goes is you just go back to where you were, you know?
Right.
It's not that bad.
No, it's not.
People are afraid of that.
You got to take that risk. You're all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get it. Like it breaks the norm and it's difficult.
And I also have nothing to risk, you know?
Right. Yeah. Some people have other slight different risks, but I mean, it's still, you can't sit and say that like, don't do it. Now you just really.
But even like, I had to make a pretty giant decision, even though it might have seemed like it came easy to like pick up and leave my tattoo shop for a year. I mean, that wasn't like an easy thing to do.
No, not at all.
And like,
man.
Of course I was like nervous, but at the same time, I'm like, I mean, I have like the most ridiculously good crew on planet Earth. So it's like, I didn't have to worry about it because I just knew I didn't have to worry about it. You know,
which is awesome.
In my brain, I'm just like, nah, like they got it. They know, you know, like.
And you set that up. I mean, not that you set it up, but like you again, talking about what I just talked about, you surrounded yourself with the right people.
Yeah. It took me 5 years. I mean, we've never cycled through tattooers. We've always had the same crew, man, which is like.
That's unheard of, right?
Very unheard of.
Like that doesn't happen.
Nah.
That doesn't even happen in like a hair salon, let alone a tattoo shop, right? And I compare those two because I think of them in similar parallels of how the business operates, right? But that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's family.
And two of them don't work in the building every day anymore, but they haven't left. You know?
They haven't. No.
They think they left, but they didn't.
They think they left. Yeah. Little do they know, I have trackers on them. No, so that's really cool. The fact that like you can do that, like that you've had influence, right? That you've been inspired to push and that you're able to do that as well. And like, I hope to be able to do that with certain people. Like I hope that like, if I have conversations with people that I don't come across as some pompous ass or in any way kind of put someone down. But like, if I provide some type of criticism or critique that like, it's a challenge to, hey, push yourself. Like try to do more, try to be better.
We talk about this all the time in the shop.
At what you're doing.
I mean, like, some people can take critiques and some people can't.
Yeah, that's the hard thing.
Comes down to, man.
School, I think, was the biggest thing that helped me do that. School specifically, you know, call it secondary school, college, right? I don't really call my school college because it was kind of a joke. We had pizza parties, which was kind of weird for me to like say. Like we legit had a pizza party at my school. Sick. And it was awesome. But then I'm also like, I'm at college right now. This is weird because it was a technical school, right? So it wasn't like a regular college experience at all. Yeah. Our bookstore when we first started was literally a closet because like we didn't really have books. Like it was for visual communication. But did you guys do that? So you went to Wholesale. Yeah. We can talk about that. But after school, right? You went down to Florida. You did talk about going out to Florida. So in Florida, you were at Wholesale University. Yeah. Tell me about that experience.
It was awesome, man. I mean, it was just like I went for computer animation and I loved it. I mean, I graduated, you know, I have a degree in something, you know.
Something.
I have a degree in, what is it, computer science. Like,
computer science?
So broad, you know.
Dope, dude.
But yeah, I mean, like I learned so much down there, but I also learned that I didn't want to do that forever, you know. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I have like a lot of like expensive friends, you know, like I met so many awesome people down there that I still keep in contact with. And that was like what I got out of it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
experience.
Yeah. You know, it was great. And plus I was 18, I was living on my own, running amok in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you can't really beat that at all.
It's fantastic.
It was great. No, Wholesale was awesome, man. I liked it. It's like that place went from being like 2 buildings to owning, like, I'm pretty sure they own like an entire city block.
They're huge now, dude. They do I've seen commercials of them on YouTube for like full like video production, like full on everything. Like, and even
they
like they'll basically
now they do like online. None of that existed. That was like awesome. my program was 14 months long and that was it.
Yeah.
And it was like,
so it was similar to mine. Mine was 18 months.
It's an accelerated program. So you like had class from 1 a.m. till 5 a.m. They like try to make it like real world, you know?
Yeah.
And, that's why they call it real world education.
Real world education.
But it was cool, man, because like it was like fitting for my lifestyle anyway. It's like, I have to get up or already stay up at 1 a.m. and go work on a computer and make art and do weird stuff. You know,
well, you were telling me that some people like during like final stuff sleeping under their desks.
Oh, yeah, the kids that were dedicated to
complete their projects.
Yeah, man, they were in it. Like kids would just sleep in that school because rendering stuff out for nights and nights. Because
that's a whole thing, man. Like, and I sort of dabbled. Like we were talking about Lightwave before. Like I played with Lightwave, and then I tried playing with Maya because you guys were doing Maya down there, right?
I learned Maya for 14 months.
Maya, yeah. And that, for those that don't know, like, definitely at the time, I mean, it's probably 3ds Max now, but Maya probably still is industry standard, like 3D animation, 3D programming, like the stuff that you see Pixar doing, Maya. Yeah. That's Maya.
That's what I learned to do. Just animate and create characters.
And I tried that, and dude, that's hard. It's like
really,
modeling
really
a character, rigging a character.
It's every
animating.
month you'd have a class that taught a different like pull down menu from the bar.
Oh,
it's just
dude.
like for an entire month you got to take a test on that one and then move on. It was crazy. It was intense, man. It was definitely cool. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And I know a lot of kids like, who went on and done really
and that's
cool
what they
stuff.
do.
Yeah. And there's a kid who became like the director of the Spider-Man video games.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's like, yo, I made the dude that directed that video game.
My friend Kim, who I met down there, she was in digital media. She wasn't in my program, but she's still involved in the school heavily. She goes down there and like speaks now and like.
That's cool.
Yeah, she's like heavily involved in it. It could be a cool place if you take advantage of what that school has to offer for sure.
Right.
I just knew that it was like.
Not you.
Nah, man. Like it was a lot less pencil to paper, and that's like what I love, even now, everyone's on the iPad game, and I mess around with an iPad. I have one. I love it. It's fun, but at the end of the day, man, I'm drawing. I like that feeling. I like the organic feeling for sure.
Yeah, that Bic ballpoint on a piece of lined ruled paper, dude.
I want to like erase, and get shit all over the place and make a mess, and I don't know. But I still use an iPad. I mean, I can't try to hate on it. I like it.
No, it's a tool, right? For what it is.
It's good for when I need it, and when I don't, I draw.
It allows for the efficiencies where you can versus, hey man, I want to enjoy this. I want to. It's not work. It's just leisurely. Like I want to do this. Like cool. Yeah, this is a good feeling of traditional illustration. Call it. Yeah, and I kind of bring up the school thing, not to necessarily say like, oh, school's important, but more to the fact that like it can be. But I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like it's going to be what you take out of it, right? So if you could leave there being like, oh, stupid, it was a waste of my time. It's like, no, I'm not going to think about that way. Like here were my takeaways from that.
Yeah, I don't think I wasted any time.
No, and I remember there were kids that were in my program that I was super driven when I was in that, and there were kids that were in my program that clearly weren't, like that just didn't really, they were just doing it because it was something they had to do or whatever it was. Yeah. And I remember them being real mad that like they didn't get like a job placement. And it was just like, all right, man, like what steps did you take to try to get that job placement? Like don't just expect things to just be handed to you. Like that will never happen. Well, not unless you're like the Prince of England or something. I don't know. Like then, like dude, your kid's gonna be a prince one day. Like he's gonna have it handed to him. If I liked it,
then I would have dove into it.
Right.
I don't think I would have been any different than I am now. I would have just been putting all of my time into that instead of what I am now. Right. It's just like that. I knew that wasn't my forever, and I moved on, and then I worked some warehouse jobs, and I did some other things, and worked at an art store, and then I molded my way into the tattoo industry.
Started doing tattooing. Yeah. So how long have you been tattooing?
Man, I think it's going to be almost 13 years this fall.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So you were working out of Shelton, right?
Yeah, I did Bridgeport tattoo. Shelton tattoo. And then at West Haven tattoo for a year.
Yeah. And
but that was like because Chris owned both of those shops, and I went to West Haven because Mikey was the front desk dude and learning how to tattoo at the time.
Yeah.
So I went there to go work with him.
Yeah.
Mostly,
just hanging out with your boys.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so.
But that was while I was building FTS.
Right.
So I was building FTS
while you were still doing
happening.
that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then now FTS has been around for 7 years.
7 years.
But you're just going to be celebrating it later. Yeah. So talk to me about that. So for those that are listening that. And this will probably get published, next week or the week after. So the timeline's still there.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that celebration.
7-year B-Day, man. It's at Booth Memorial Park.
Yes.
I rented out.
Staple of Stratford, Connecticut.
Yes, I rented out the building that everyone knows too because everyone goes to Stags there.
Yep. Uh-huh.
But I rented out the 2-floor building on June 2nd. I think it's from 4 to 11.
Dope.
5 bands. A whole floor of artists vending their stuff, live painting.
Yeah.
Just some good solid
Just a good
hangs,
time.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just trying to hang out.
if it's, and I bring that up too, because, you know, I forget who had said it, but basically, like, people will sit and talk about this energy that they put into, like, I don't know why I want to label Kanye, but any kind of singer, songwriter, like celebrity, right? Let's just say people will put so much time invested into these celebrities, and then someone will say, like, hey man, if you put all that time and energy into like the local creatives in your community, like, you'd really make a difference. Because this celebrity doesn't really care. Like, you're a dime and you're nothing. You're a grain of sand to them. So when you can support local art, because that makes all the difference. Like, someone has an art show, like, yeah, man, you're not an art person. Cool. Literally, if you show up, it makes the world. It changes. It's like, oh my God, you're here. Even if you just show up for 20 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, walk around, and then go home. Like, that's fine. That's cool.
It's free. It's like literally what we do every year to like show appreciation for everybody that's like supports our shop, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I'm super thankful for it. And I try to show it as much as I possibly can, man.
For sure.
I just throw in these little rippers, but
yeah.
I don't know, like the shop is just, last year was like a little intense, so I was like, man, we just need to get more room, you know? It's just like
more space, right? Yeah.
It's just like the beach was like,
I think you set the precedent there. That's what happened, dude. Like, it was so big, and then now you tried to take all of that into this little space, shop, and you're like, no, dude, this place is gonna explode. So that's what it is now. It's like you have to just have these outside venues, which is awesome. Like, the fact that, like, I can't do this in my space anymore. Like, I need more space. That's fantastic.
It used to just be like an art show, and now it's like, nah, they're parties. But at the same time, like, Liz is screen printing, and look at Marcella is, you know, painting live painting. And we got like local bands, and then like one big band to headline. But
it's just a good time. Man. It's just a good time, good energy, good people. Like, it's just, and again, it's not just like, I don't want to label it as like support local art. It's like, yeah, support local art, but support a community, just support people that are doing good things, man.
Like, support yourself and just have a good time, you know?
That's it. Yeah. Also, just, come, bring the family, hang out.
If you're bored and you talk shit about Connecticut, well, we're providing you with something to do on a Saturday.
That's perfect, right? Oh, this place sucks. There's nothing to do. Okay, cool. Something to do. Go hang out at a booth, dude. Yeah, man, that's fantastic. I love it, dude. It's cool to be able to take this, like, you know, passion, hobby, call it, right, and then translate it into a business, a successful business, right? And then be able to share that with like more and more people and just like expanding that.
Man, it all starts with tattooing, man. I owe it all to tattooing. Like, tattooing has given me the life that I've always wanted to live.
How cool is that?
Yeah. That's like why I hold it like on such a pedestal, you know? Like, I don't know. It's just, I love it, man.
Right. It's not just,
it lets me live how I want to live every day.
It's not just a job. Like, it's not like, I don't know. It's not just like an art, because I guess I think about, I'm trying to think of the audience listening to this right now. Like, how are they influenced by tattoos? I don't know, right? Like, I think about when I look at Instagram, right? Like, I know the community that's listening to this is big on Instagram. So when you look at Instagram, you see these trends of things happening, and, you know, this, I don't want to call it celebrity of tattooing, but like, you know, there's a motivation to have a presence as a tattooer, right? But there's way more to it than that. Like, there's much deeper roots. To it. And I mean, not to mention the fact that like tattooing has shifted tremendously just as an art form. Think about in the past, you know, 30 years, 50 years, how it's shifted. So, I mean, you could probably attest to maybe even in the past 5 years,
easily, man,
how much it shifted.
It's progressing quick for sure. Just
within styles alone. Because, you know, you'll find someone, and I'm sure you could find someone 30 years ago that was really good at making portraits, like photorealistic portraits. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the pushing of creativity, the pushing of styles, like the stuff that I was mentioning to Raquel, I think on the podcast, was that sort of watercolor style that people do. And you look at it, and there's this rendering of what looks like watercolor and blending of colors that you would see on traditional paper on skin. It's like, that looks cool, man. Now, am I going to go get a watercolor tattoo just because? No, I'm not going to do that. But
I hate that word. I hate that word. I hate that whole. I hate it.
Watercolor?
Oh, that's the worst, man. It's the worst.
Is that something that you encounter where people will specifically with the watercolor thing?
It became a thing. Yeah, I mean, it just became...
That was a thing.
Yeah. It's
dude, do you do the watercolor thing? You're like, no, leave my shop.
There's this dude, Gene Coffey, who I think he does it the best. I think he's
He's the
been
guy
doing it the longest. For me personally, I don't know a lot of people who do that specifically, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think he does it the best, and it looks like the most natural,
right?
And like the most like organic as it can on skin, when it literally is just like splashing and whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I like his stuff the best. So every time someone wants it, I'm just like, you should just hit up this dude.
Just go to him.
He's in New York. It's not that
he's the guy that does it, right?
Yeah.
He's not. So talk to me about that. I was about to say, it's not like he's untouchable, but in some cases you are, right? Like, I mean, you get booked out for months and months and months.
I think that's like or
is that a myth?
It's a myth, man.
Is it?
Like it is.
Or is it fake booking? Is there a business strategy?
No, I mean, there's definitely tattooers who have like a waiting list for however long, you know.
Okay.
But me personally, like, I don't book far out anymore, man. I used to. When I was in Shelton and making that transition, I was like a year ahead of myself, you know. But like after a while, it's like I'm like predicting my future for so long that like
you're committed. You can't do things like traveling, or as you're telling me,
you have to like set up the year. So it's like this month I'm traveling for a week here, then I can book after that, traveling, you know. So I kind of like stopped doing that just because it's easier for myself. So like the whole world thinks that I'm booked out for 1,000 years, but I'm not, you know.
You can't book with Jorge, man. It's too.
I mean, like right now I'm booking like the end of June, I think, you know, which is not that far.
No, it's not. You know? A couple weeks from when we're recording this. Yeah. Oh, all right. Yeah, sweet. Okay, so maybe it is, I guess,
possible to get tattooed by me. I'm not. You know, I'm not like untouchable.
Yeah.
You know, I try to make time for everybody anyway, as much as I possibly can. You know, so I usually book like a few months ahead of myself at the most.
Yeah.
But other than that,
and you get a lot of call them repeat customers, right? Like, do you have some regulars, right, where people will come in, and I bring that up just to kind of talk about the craft, right, where people will come in, you'll start your work on some ideas. You'll figure out the ideas, and then you'll start with just the line work, right? Like, boom, one sitting is maybe just line work, maybe some shading, right? With that process, is that difficult to kind of pick up where you left off? If there's like gaps in between, like 3 months in between, or is it usually like pretty good to kind of pick up, like if you see your work, right, something that you're working on, you're like, oh, cool, right, let me pick up where we're going with this.
I don't know. I think it just depends what it is. I think when I don't see something for a couple of months, I might change it completely depending on where I am, but for the better, you know? Right. It's like when you take that step back from something, you get to like re-look at it completely fresh. So then like you get to kind of like redevelop it and stuff. And depending on how far you got in the setting before, then, you know, I mean, obviously with tattooing, you're a little bit limited. If you get so far and then you don't see somebody for 6 months and then you're like, I wish I could change that.
Right. Yeah. No, not going to happen.
And most of the time you can, you know what I mean? Most of the time
you have some flexibility with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Or versus, you know, they come in and like, all right, cool, let's pick up where we left off. You're like, oh, what were they doing there? No, that's, oh, jeez, okay. All right, yeah, you know, this is great. Yeah, we're going to pick up, this is going to look cool. Yeah, man, we got this. Because I'll do that, but like, I do it where like, I'll step away from the computer for 5 minutes and then I'll go look back and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. I need to do this thing over here and to refine that.
It's like nice to do that sometimes. Sometimes it's, sucks. But
versus just like a straight like 6 hour sitting, although I don't know 6 hour sittings are not probably too common, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah? Just straight up, boom, we're sitting here 6 hours, we're gonna bang this thing out.
I usually do 4 a day. I usually do 2 4-hour sittings a day, roughly.
Damn, that's a long time. That's your day. Versus like an hour here, a little break here. It's like, no, boom, we're locked into this. We're hanging out. And I was talking about that with Mikey.
Something larger. I mean, 4 is like a good. I mean, sometimes people want to sit long, and I'll sit for whenever.
You're good for it. Yeah,
I'm good. I'll sit for 10 hours if they want to. And some kids will, man. Some kids will just sit and get tattooed,
sit and hang out and just chat, or even pop in headphones and just go to town. But when we were talking about that, I was talking about that with Mike. It's like, there's an intimacy there, right? There's a trust there. There's an intimacy there. And like, that's huge. So you become, we were joking about it, but like you become a therapist in a matter of ways. I'm sure the stories that you've heard, just the drama that you've just been exposed to of just day to day, like just people's lives based off of tattooing. Just based off of an art. Like if you strip away all that stuff, and I was making that comparison with Mike, it's like, that's cool when you think about it, that happened, those exposures, those experiences, because of art. How freaking cool is that? It's like, I like colors and lines. Can you do that for me? Cool. And let's hang out and like share our lives together in a real close manner. I
mean, I've probably made some of the best friends ever through clients, you know. Started to have somebody to tattoo. Like little Jorge, you know, Jorge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that dude, like, we're like fucking best friends now.
That's so good.
There's this kid I was tattooing.
That's so cool. And then I would imagine there's probably some people that'll come in and give you nothing but like a hard time of trouble, and you're just like, this dude. But at the same time,
it doesn't happen often, man. I mean, I don't know. I think I just know how to talk to people. I don't know, you know, something.
Well, like we were saying, like you're the only you, dude. You're the only you.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, man. I connect with people pretty easily, I think. I don't know.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, there is, I mean, and for those that can't tell by already listening, you know, 54 minutes into this, like, Jorge is a cool guy. So there is an energy about you. There's like a calming nature about you. That, like, yeah, I could totally see that, where it's just like someone comes in maybe a little anxious or something, like you could pick up on that and be like, hey man, like, that's all good. Like, yeah, I got you.
I think I just mellow, man. People tell me that almost every single day.
Yeah.
You're so easygoing. Like, I don't know. I'm just me, you know?
Okay, yeah, just
chilling.
Doing my thing. Yeah.
It's weird, man.
It's just who I am.
It's fun.
Yeah, that's dope. Cool. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing.
Hey, man, thank you for having me.
Dude, you kidding? It's a freaking honor. Like, again, literally said, it's like, you've pushed me. You haven't pushed me, but you've just inspired me. You've pushed me to do things, and it's just like, cool, man, I'm doing this. And it's like, yeah, thanks, Jorge. Yeah. So, like, I'm doing this podcast now, and you even kind of made the comment, like, oh, we're changing up a little bit. It's like, yeah, man, like, I want to change it up. Like, I want to try. So for those that are watching this on YouTube, yeah, it's a little bit different, just because why not? Like, and maybe there's a good response, maybe there's a bad response. Mm-hmm. Also, before I forget, I want to give a shout out to my Patreon sponsors, because I'm going to shout those people out. I want to shout out Ken, I want to shout out Mike, I want to shout out Scott, and I want to shout out Mel, because you guys are awesome. When you think back about supporting local artists, I'm a local artist, and you guys are supporting me, helping me create this through my Patreon page. So for those that are interested, patreon.com/SteveWalterPhoto, there's different tiers of rewards that you will get, you know, stuff or content that I'll create as a way of saying thanks for helping me create this content. Yep. Also a shout out to my buddy Tom, because he made the music, the intro music that I use for this. Tom's a fantastic musician. He's one of those guys too that's just cool mellow dude, just relaxed dude. He was on the podcast, so for those that want to hear Tom and I's banter, I changed the setup for him too. We had a whole different setup there.
I haven't seen that one. Was that recent?
That one was, when did we do that? That was a couple, was that a month ago?
Was it after
I've done
Rocky?
Like 15, no, before.
Was it?
Yeah, it was.
Huh, I missed that one.
Yeah, because Raquel's was 3 ago, something like that. Yeah, I think she was 13. I think Tom was like 10, episode 10. But yeah, thank you to Tom. And just thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting me and doing this. Other thing I want to mention, like, I'm going to start doing plugs. I'm going to do my own commercials. So I host, because I realized, like, you need to do that, because if you don't do it, people don't know. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, how come no one's coming to my workshops? Well, you didn't tell me about it. Okay, well, let me tell you about my workshops, guys. So basically, like, in as I've been sharing with Jorge, like, the craft, the love of what I do, I host lighting workshops. I'm going to host more workshops, but currently I'm hosting lighting workshops where basically I teach people how to use off-camera lighting, off-camera flash, because time and time again, when I show up to these photo meets where I'm hanging out using my flash, people are like, hey, what is that? How does that work? How do you do this? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, cool. Let me show you how to do that. And it's difficult to do that each and every little single time. So what I try to do is host a class, try to make it affordable, right? Yeah. And for those listening, I'm currently running a discount code, 10% off of a ticket, TT May. So TT as in, I'm using this for my Tuesday tips, but TT May, Tuesday tips, MAY, the month of May. So pop that in, you get 10% off a workshop. I think that's it, dude. And now I'm just going to take a couple pictures of you.
Sounds good.
Because I got to finish it with that little
Pretty
hand
used
hug.
to that.
Yeah, you're used to that. Oh, wait, we didn't talk about the underwear shoot, dude. Oh, hold on a second. We're going to take like 2 more minutes just to talk about, I want to share the story about in the building. Yeah, so Jorge, for the longest time, for years, you were like, dude, I'm going to be an underwear model. I'm an underwear model, right?
And, shit, yeah.
And in my mind, just talking shit. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, whatever, Jorge, cool. I'll shoot you in underwear. Like, and then you were like, no, dude, I'm going to do it. You were visiting from Hawaii, mm-hmm. right? And you were here, and you made time to come to the studio. You bought like different underwear, and you're like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? We did it. We were shooting it.
Kept it legit.
Dude, that was one of the best shoots ever. And the fact that like you were locking into the poses, the contra pasta, you were just dropping right into it, just like so good. And then there's an art show at your building, right? Because where George lives, there's an art gallery. And then you showed me, like, yo, come here. Because at the entrance of this building, because it's a building that just houses artists, right? Creatives. There's a picture of every creative there. And sure enough, the picture of George that's hanging in this building is him in the underwear looking so dope. Just so dope. So I had to make sure that was shared on this.
That was good. I still have to send them out, though. I still haven't followed through.
Get them to the agencies. That's it. Yeah. I've actually had better conversations with some agencies. I'm going to 100% submit that photo to them and be like, hey, so here's a fresh face for you.
So now I got to take off the Connecticut winter chub, man. Imagine if I was fat. But no.
All right, dude. Thank you so much. I love you.
I love you more.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. Cheers.